Hans, Bobby, I'm your white knight.
Want to get your hands on some sports knowledge?
Hell yes!
You're in the right place.
Good morning.
Is everybody ready?
Welcome to the Daily Sports Watch on Schultzy Sports.
What is up, sports fans? It is Tuesday, February 28th, the final day. I love it. Brad Selden says, we hit a wall. What's up? We did hit a wall. Final day of February here, 12:06, 12:07 on this last day of the second month of the year 2023. What is going on? We are here talking sports here on the Daily Sports Watch on Real Schultzy Sports on YouTube. Trying to Twitter live stream today. Don't really know how that works. We're testing it. We're seeing if we can get this out to some more eyes. Good to be here, though. As usual, lots to react to in the world of sports. This is such a busy time of year. Not quite as busy as like the fall when you got all sports going on, baseball, basketball, football, hockey starting up. So you literally college football is going on every Saturday as well. So you got something to watch basically every day. It still feels like that. Still feels like we are watching stuff every day. Different, really, really exciting matchups in all different sports. So definitely a good time to talk about all kinds of NFL Combine stuff. We've got some movement again in the NFL. Players getting released today, starting to see some teams try to relieve themselves of some cap hits. We'll talk about that. Of course, the Blazers back in action tonight after Damian Lillard's 71-point performance on Sunday, so we got to hit you up with all that information as well. Seeing a bunch of people in the chat on YouTube. What's going on? Going loud, Matt 420 in the chat. Brad Selden, Ryan Paulino, back-to-back Pat, Center Hill Cards, all of my loyal listeners. What's going on, y'all? This is, of course, a live stream and a podcast. We do live stream on YouTube every day at noon Pacific, 3 East Coast time, and then the show is available as a podcast on every platform that you could find it. Pretty much iHeart, Apple. I'm trying to think of like all of the names of them. Tune in. You can find it everywhere. So to get into the start of the show today, wanted to kind of start with the baseball changes that have been happening that we've seen in spring training. Big rules coming now into the forefront of the game of baseball. Pace of play getting faster. We can talk about this. 23 minutes shorter on average our games right now in spring training as compared to last year. And I love it. I love that new pace of play. I can't stand rules constricting position players and pitchers and the sizes of those September rosters. They used to be able to call up their entire roster and get 40 guys on the team. That kind of lengthened games a little bit, but that's kind of the time of year where I feel like you really, obviously the most is at stake, and you really have to think each situation, down to like the little minute details, and usually that involves throwing 7 relievers in, at least when you had 40 people on your roster. You don't now. That was stopped so you could at least keep the game times, especially at that part of the year, right around 3 hours. We're already dealing with long baseball games, but I love seeing a bit shorter action. I hate, as much as I like to see that mind game and that thinking game going on between managers, I hate it when you've got like a 50-minute inning. It's boring. Who has time to watch that kind of baseball? We've got lives. Most of y'all out there have kids, or you got a girlfriend or a wife or a hubby or something else that you got to go do on top of work, and you don't have time to sit down and watch a near hour of baseball when it's taken one inning. So the pace of play changes, really getting rid of all that. I love it. A huge fan of the pitch clock and eliminating the shift. There's also no longer going to be at-bats with endless pickoff throws. Essentially, now you're limited when a player is at bat, a pitcher can throw to the base twice. And I believe that means he can do that twice overall. It's not twice to first, twice to second. If the bases are loaded and you've got somebody at the dish, obviously you don't care. But if you've got a runner on first and second, well, you could maybe throw once to each base or twice to the same base in one at bat. You can't go more than that. So shortening up the game forces pitchers to really just key in and actually pitch instead of playing that mental game, just throwing to first base, throwing a pickoff. I couldn't stand that watching either on TV or at games either. When I'm in the crowd at a baseball game like that and that's happening, I'm like, what the hell is going on? Stop this. Actually play. You're not playing the damn game. You're trying to not pitch to the guy. And yeah, guys will on the mound claim that it's all a bunch of mind games, but I don't think it's that. I think they're just not ready to throw the actual pitch to home plate yet, although that would be disputed by many different players in baseball, I'm sure. But longer at-bats, of course, no long at-bats, as we were just talking about, with endless pickoff throws. I love that. And seeing the changes implemented, I've been watching heavy Mariners action since they started on Friday. Pretty much every game that they've played, they actually started, I think, a couple minutes ago. First pitch, 12:10 today. So they're back in action right now against the Angels. So excited to watch that kind of as I'm doing this show. But a lot of the action in the Mariners games that I've been watching has been so much more exciting. We're talking about like the shifts being removed. So instead of just a guy always hitting it to a player in the field somewhere, you've got more seeing eye singles again. You've got opportunities for guys to get on base, and it moves the game along. Those balls going through the infield didn't used to do that in the last 5 to 6 seasons because the shift becoming such a thing. But now with these seeing eye singles again, with these balls dropping right back into the outfield, past the shortstop as it should, or dribbling right past the first baseman because the shift isn't perfectly aligned for that person's hitting tendencies at the plate, well, it makes the game a lot more watchable. Not to mention, it helps raise the batting average of those players as well. Pitchers, I will say after seeing all this, pitchers are pretty adamant that the new rules are going to give them advantages over the hitters. What do y'all think about that? Seeing Brad checking in, do you think it's going to lead to more pitcher injuries talking about this new rule and pace of play? You know, pitchers actually really like the advantage that they think they're going to have on hitters. I don't know as far as being forced to work faster, how many pitchers are not going to like that, or how many of their bodies aren't really going to get adjusted to that. You know, it is obviously something when you're talking about throwing 90 miles an hour and essentially doing something that the human body is really not meant to do, and only a handful of guys in this world can do it. That is a very delicate arm filled with essentially 2 rubber bands that you're trying to make sure don't tear, don't burst. And when you're pitching a lot quicker, when you're taking a lot less time in between pitches to try and rest, could the potential for more pitcher injuries be there? That's a great question. I'm not really sure that I have enough knowledge on pitchers in general, really, and their injury histories to know if that's going to do anything or not. I mean, we had pitchers throwing like 9-inning games all the time up until the 80s, right? The relief pitching wasn't really a thing in Major League Baseball. That kind of came to the forefront in the 90s, late 90s, seeing relievers really taking over. But the first time we saw relievers in Big League Baseball was in the 80s. Of course, closers becoming a prominent thing in baseball around that time. But before that, pitchers just, if you were a starter, you were expected to go the whole way. Brad Selden saying they were hungry back then. You're right. That's a good point, man. They were playing for a lot less money, and the game was a lot different. Nowadays, it's more risking. You don't want to pitch all 9 innings all the time because it's more risking any chance at those future earnings. So it's funny to see pitchers, though, saying that they will have an advantage coming up this season. Of course, the pitch clock, it's going to require pitchers to throw with basically a set time clicking down from the time that the player steps into the batter's box and the time that they have to throw. Otherwise, they can have a ball called against them. Hitters adjusting to the new rule, but we saw Manny Machado, of course, get a strike called on him when he stepped out of the box and did not get back in with 8 seconds remaining. Same with the, I believe it was the Braves and Cardinals, or the Braves and Dodgers. I can't remember the other team. I apologize. The game that ended on a tie, a spring training game, so it is a tie because you don't want to play extra innings in spring training, but that would eventually essentially send the game 2 extra innings. And if that ever happened on a clock violation in a regular season game, I bet you it's going to happen maybe once or twice, and I'm going to laugh really hard when it does. But with all this, pitchers, they think they have an advantage because of the unforeseen ripple effect of the pitch timer. It essentially, you know, we were talking about the changing of pickoffs, changing of strategies of these players, essentially just having to go right to the plate, not having to think about as much. I like that, but it really could have a ripple effect both ways. I don't think it just could have a ripple effect on the pitcher. I think if the hitters get into a groove, then it could benefit them too. But pitchers thinking that the true impact of the pitch timer really is leaning towards them, but I think it remains to be seen. We're obviously getting a better indication of what's happening now with all these rule changes that we've been waiting for during these first few spring training games. Those pizza box first, second, and third base first bases, you know, they don't look as big as Alex Cora said they were. People are like, oh, they're going to look ridiculous. They're going to laugh. Like, I'm watching a Major League Baseball game, and maybe it's because I'm not looking at a field next to it with the old bases on it, but it still looks pretty normal to me. But maybe if I'm there in person, it'll look more like a pizza box. It's just like people were like all concerned about these rule changes. I as I've said before, I hate some of the ways that the game is changing. I understand why you don't want a 40-man roster in September, but I personally, that has been part of the fabric of the game of baseball forever. Unfortunately, that's gone. Now we're seeing other things leaving as well, but I think some, like the shift, are good to get out of here. Good riddance. We need to get them out because there's just no way we can continue to enjoy the game of baseball and get it out to more eyes if we're watching guys hit 230, 240 every single year. A lot of the lower averages in the past few years because of guys hitting into shifts, essentially. Well, what that's done is taken away a ton of singles, and that has lowered batting averages across the board. Usually you're used to seeing guys that are starters in Major League Baseball hitting anywhere from 240, 260, 270, 280, 290, all the good ones hitting over 300. Well, now the number of batters hitting over 300 has been lower than it's ever been. The shift is going to fix that. And with the excitement added back, like I was saying, all those seeing eye ground balls, I was excited to see an infielder having to dive onto the outfield grass, trying to grab that ground ball, probably going to be a base hit, and then it ends up being a base hit. It makes the game more exciting. You don't just have the players standing there ready to go. And we're now at a point, thankfully, baseball has decided that is a way that we can raise batting averages again. Sucks that it took essentially just eliminating anywhere that players could hit on the field. But I don't know. I digress. I think that it's absolutely great for the game. And going forward, it's going to make things much more exciting. So that's my little monologue to get started off on the show. Of course, like I said, lots to talk about. Quarterback movement. LeBron James breaking his freaking foot. What does that mean for the Western Conference and for the Los Angeles Lakers after they acquired D'Angelo Russell? I don't think it means good things for them. We'll take a look at the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference standings in the NBA coming up. Tell you there's a lot of teams kind of crunched together, a gaggle of them really grouped right around the same record in the Western Conference. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for pretty much any team to try and jump up and compete with Denver, because it's going to be obvious it's going to be Memphis or Denver in the Western Conference Finals, right? Maybe the Kings, but at this point, Memphis and Denver are the two best teams. Denver by far has been the best team overall in the Western Conference. And what does LeBron James's injury mean to the Lakers, who went all in at the deadline trying to acquire some talent in Jared Vanderbilt and D'Angelo Russell to put around LeBron for another championship run? But first, we get into the top 5 sports stories of the day in the Daily Playbook.
Looking for the top 5 sports stories of the day?
Can someone please tell me what's going on?
Information is power.
News.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Look no further.
Okay, settle down, Spaz.
It's the Daily Playbook on the Daily Sports Watch.
Number 5.
All right, number 5, top sports story of the day. Saw this yesterday and actually kind of went under the radar, but I wanted to put it out there. Wrexham, I don't know if you've seen the new FX show about the soccer team that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have bought. Wrexham FC. They're going to be facing off against Manchester United in the United States on a friendly world tour. Man United coming to San Diego as well as a few other cities, but they're going to face Wrexham in a summer-friendly match as part of a U.S. preseason tour. Of course, Wrexham is owned by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. In talks for a friendly with Chelsea as well. Good to see Wrexham getting out there, and after you see that show on FX, you really learn a lot about soccer and how the game is played over there in Europe, and really how entrenched fans are. No matter if your team is in the top tier or down in the bottom tier, your city loves your team. And good to see Wrexham getting to play some real opponents. The last time Manchester United and Wrexham played competitively, it was back in 1995. United winning 5-2 at Old Trafford, of course. Unfortunately, fans are being advised against making travel arrangements based on speculation to avoid disappointment. So I wonder how you're going to get there, or it's just going to be local to San Diego. I don't know, but Wrexham facing Manchester United. Good for Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds. All right, number 4, Dodgers shortstop Gavin Lux suffering a torn ACL and LCL in his right knee on Monday afternoon in Arizona. It's going to sideline him for most of the 2023 season. It was a non-contact injury. Just hate to see this happen to anybody. He basically stumbled while running in between second and third base, trying to alter his path of running while a ball was being thrown over his head. That caused his knee to lock up and explode. 25 years old, he was set to be the everyday shortstop, had kind of been waiting for an opportunity to open up. Corey Seager signing with the Rangers last year, and now some more questions in their infield giving the Dodgers confidence to put Lux there. They're now going to go to Miguel Rojas. Chris Taylor might see some time there, but the first rounder from 2016 for the Dodgers. He's a top 5 prospect, and when you see a big prospect go down like this, I know a lot of collectors are upset about this because they were putting their money into Gavin Lux, waiting for his time. It was supposed to be now, but really hate to see this for Gavin Lux as well. Just horrible ACL and LCL. That's essentially just an explosion of your ligaments in your knee. Wow. Hope he gets better quick, and hopefully he can get back on the field before the end of the 2023 season. All right, number 3 top story in the world of sports for the Daily Playbook today. LeBron James suffering a broken foot. He will be out several weeks for the Los Angeles Lakers. The full extent of the injury not quite yet known. He's going to be having more tests. They had already ruled him out for tonight's game at Memphis with right foot soreness, along with LeBron James suffering that broken foot. Another big injury in the NBA as well. LaMelo Ball, his frustrating injury-plagued season, pretty much now over. He broke his right ankle in the Hornets' 117-106 win over the Pistons. And actually, that was in my daily D-Gen picks from yesterday. We'll get into that in just a second. LaMelo had already missed 27 games this season, and he had sprained his ankle a bunch. So at this point, his star status is starting to fade. If you can't stay on the court, people aren't going to be willing to buy your cards for a ton of money, brothers. So we'll see if LaMelo Ball can stay healthy going into 2023-24, but missing more games than he's playing in this year. And the Hornets, one of the worst teams in the East. So just all a bunch of tumultuous behavior over in Charlotte. All right, number 2, spring training games, 22 minutes shorter on average this year. They are down 22 minutes timing-wise compared to last year thanks to the pitch clock implemented by Major League Baseball. The opening weekend's average game time was 2 hours 39 minutes, which took an average back in 2022 of 3 hours and a minute. So we're talking a difference of 22 minutes. The pitch clock really getting things moved along. And, of course, the lack of shifts and other things now forcing some action to happen on the baseball field. The league really hoping this reduces that dead time at MLB games. And I think it's going to do just that. All right, number 1, some big releases in the world of the NFL today. Kenny Golladay gone from New York. They decided to cut bait after signing him to a $72 million contract. Just a couple of years after signing 29-year-old Kenny Golladay, the Giants have let him go. He was a super successful receiver with the Detroit Lions. He had 2 1,000-yard seasons in a row, made the Pro Bowl back in 2019. The Giants paid him that bundle, $72 million contract, highly anticipated that he would be a high-impact player. But his one touchdown in 2021 with 43 receptions and 602 yards, of course, that just is not worth $72 million. So the Giants going to save a ton of money, $6.5, maybe $6.6 million against their salary cap by cutting Golladay. He's still going to get a roster bonus, though. And in other NFL release news, Marcus Mariota, former top pick in the NFL draft, or second overall pick in the NFL draft, Marcus Mariota cut by the Atlanta Falcons. He started 13 games in Atlanta, but was not ever going to be their long-term starter. They gave him a shot, but it's because they had no chance to really go and get any quarterback other than Deshaun Watson, and they decided that they weren't going to do that, so they turned to essentially a combination of Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota. The Falcons essentially, I think they only have Desmond Ridder on their roster at quarterback at this point. Now the Falcons kind of looking like the Buccaneers and Kyle Trask. It's like one guy. You wonder if Ridder's going to be the starter. He never showed that he was going to take the Atlanta Falcons over the top. What are you thinking? 10-win season with Ridder coming out in 2 years or less? I don't think that's going to happen, but they had to get rid of Marcus Mariota because his time in Atlanta did not go very fruitful either. So the Falcons have the 8th pick of the draft. They could be trying to get a quarterback. Who knows? I don't think they have that high pick enough to get C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, but they're probably looking somewhere in this year's draft for a quarterback. We'll see if they can make the right decision. That is the Daily Playbook. Now we move on to one of my favorite segments every week where we hit on my favorite teams in the world of sports. It's called Schultzy's World.
Here's what's happening in Schultzy's world.
You are in my little pond now, and I am the big fish that runs it.
All right, Portland Trail Blazers, let's start off with that. They are in action tonight, facing off against the Steph Curry-less Golden State Warriors. Of course, the Blazers, in an effort, trying to make the playoffs right now because ultimately they need to. They really need to. They must try to make the playoffs because they need to shed their draft protection on the first-round pick that they owe to the Chicago Bulls from a trade a year or two ago. Unfortunately, this pick that they traded to the Chicago Bulls, it is lottery protected every year between now and 2028. So this is why the Portland Trail Blazers need to try and make the playoffs this year. Yes, they're running out of time in Damian Lillard's prime. Their roster may not be that elite right now, but if they don't make the playoffs this year, it is possible that Portland could be without the ability to trade a first-round pick until they give that up. And essentially, when they make the playoffs, that pick is released to Chicago because the lottery protection is gone. They could not make that trade last year because, of course, the Blazers didn't make the playoffs. So, no lottery protection, or the lottery protection coming into play there. No pick for the Bulls, and the Blazers have to wait a little bit longer. Do they know? No. And that's why they need to make the playoffs, because essentially, when you can't trade this year's first-round pick, rules in the NBA dictate that you can't trade any other first-round picks following, and because of the situation that the Blazers are under with this draft protection until 2028, they essentially are forced to hold on to all those picks and can't give any of those up for a big player or a big piece until 2028 or until that pick gets released to the Bulls. Blazers have hamstrung themselves. They need to make the playoffs to give themselves the ability to actually get over the top and get that star player. That's kind of the main issue with the Portland Trail Blazers at this point. Of course, they are down in the West next to the Pelicans and Lakers in the standings. They're actually tied 13 games behind the Nuggets. Technically just 1/100th of a point behind the Pelicans for the 10th spot in the West, which would technically, if it started today, get them into the play-in. And that's the thing, the Blazers, if you look at the West overall, we'll look at this here again once we pull LeBron James's topics into the conversation. But I wanted to show you all the Western Conference standings here. Let me see. Thought I had my screen being shared. My apologies, guys. Let's get the standings up right now. Perfect. Got him. All right, so you see the top of the Western Conference, the Nuggets obviously holding a big lead over everybody. Memphis, the next closest team at 5.5. But you see the Blazers down there with the Pelicans and the Lakers and Thunder as well, all separated by less than a game. And behind that, they're only 3 games behind the Suns for the 4th spot in the West. Check that out, guys. All these teams in the Western Conference so grouped together. The Blazers have an opportunity to get that draft pick away, give it to Chicago, free up their ability to make that deal for a star player that's going to come in and try to help Damian Lillard win a championship in Portland before his prime is done. What's going on? Trey Conrad says, Schultzy, the gambling king, deserves another lock. I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you, Trey. We'll have our daily DGen picks coming up here in about 40 minutes or so here on the Daily Sports Watch. So yeah, the Blazers have a good opportunity to make the playoffs here, and they must. They have to. Damian Lillard is running out of time, and with that time running out, you got to get that draft pick protection rid, because if you don't, then that time's going to run out before you can actually get a star player, and Damian Lillard's going to be screwed. Now, as I was saying yesterday, you better not knock his legacy if he ends up retiring without winning a championship. There's really no reason that he's less of a player. I know people talk about Karl Malone and Charles Barkley's existence. They were great players in the NBA, Hall of Famers, but they didn't win a ring. Is it their fault that they didn't win a ring? Is it Charles Barkley's fault? Is it Karl Malone's fault that the Utah Jazz or that the Phoenix Suns didn't win a ring? I guess the Sixers back in his younger days? Is that their fault individually? No. Now that we're looking at the situation Damian Lillard's in, is it Damian Lillard's fault that the Portland Trail Blazers aren't winning a championship to this point under his tutelage? Well, one, it's not under his tutelage. It's actually still under the GM and under the head coach and the other 14 guys, 15 guys on the roster that still have to make a difference. He can score 36 a game, but that doesn't mean you're going to win every single game. You need a couple other guys scoring 20, and he needs some damn good defense, and the Blazers don't have that. So they got to make that run to the first round of the playoffs at least to try and shed that draft protection, and that's where the Portland Trail Blazers are at right now as they face off against the Steph Curry-less Golden State Warriors. Coming up tonight, they are 2 games under 500. been thinking they were going to get maybe 45 wins at the start of the season, and at this point, that prediction seems pretty solid. About 45 wins, I think, is where the Blazers are going to end up. That could get them into at least the play-in, and if so, then get them into the playoff, because, yeah, they need to get themselves untied so they can make that trade for a big star player. On to my Seattle Mariners here in Schultzy's world. Of course, big news going on in all of baseball because we're talking about all these changes. We're talking about how games are running a lot quicker now and people tuning in just to see kind of the flow of everything. But specifically with my Seattle Mariners, of course, we've got coming off of our first playoff appearance in 22 years, to be exact, was just that monkey on the back of not really just the Mariners, but every professional sports team out there, because they had the longest drought of any team in all the four major sports: hockey, basketball, football, and baseball. So the Mariners back at it today, playing the Angels right now in spring training. Of course, going to lose some players for the World Baseball Classic, as all teams are excited to get in. I think it's like March 6th or 7th is when the World Baseball Classic starts. So excited to get into that and watch that once it gets going. But one thing that was really bugging me with the Mariners, and this kind of happens with every team in spring training, you see their writers and people that are connected to the team try and like write feel-good stories because they're trying to fill a page, right? They have nothing else to write about, so they got 90-plus players in camp, so why not write about one of those guys? And there was an article that popped up yesterday, and I wanted to go over it really quick. It was on the Mariners website, but also on MLB.com. It was written by an MLB.com writer asking if Evan White is finally ready to make a contribution to the Seattle Mariners after 2 years. And I don't know if you all know who Evan White is. He is a first baseman, and he was in the news a couple years ago because he had actually gotten signed to a 6-year, $30 million contract before playing a single day in Major League Baseball. That's why maybe you should or could know who Evan White is, but the Mariners decided to take a big chance on him. They liked what he offered, had not played a day above AA, ended up signing him to a $30 million contract because they thought that by the time his arbitration years came into play and he would be leaving for free agency after he came up to the big leagues, that he would be worth way more. Well, Evan White has been injured. The dude can't hit. He can feel very well. Won a Gold Glove in the pandemic-shortened 2020 season, but hit like $173 during that year. Evan White, to me, is no better than the gaggle of replacement players that the Mariners have thrown on their roster for years and years and years. And a replacement level player, just think of like a midseason call-up for your favorite team. We all have those players on our teams that we've kind of seen that, you know, our organization, our favorite team leans on when they have guys that are injured, or somebody else can come up and kind of take care of some at-bats and fill some defensive positions while you've got a main guy out in a starter that's usually eating up a lot of innings out at shortstop or second base, you know, shuffling stuff around, leaning on a guy that's usually just considered your backup for depth, and then you bring him up to do so. And essentially, to me, that's what Evan White is for the Seattle Mariners. He's like a Brad Wilkerson, Scott Spezio, Jeremy Reed, Luis Rodriguez, just young, crappy player or crappy level veteran replacement status that essentially comes in and can barely hold its weight. The Mariners had a defensive first mindset back in the day. This was, I think, back in 2009 or 2010. They did the same thing that they did with Evan White back in 2020. They did this with Casey Kochman back in 2010. He had some sort of like crazy streak of innings. I mean, we're talking thousands of innings on a streak without committing an error, but Kochman ended up for the Mariners hitting like 220 that year. His defense did not make the Mariners any better. They won like 60, 70 games. It was a terrible, mediocre to less than mediocre season. His defense did not actually win them any games. That stellar defense, along with like a 250 or 60 batting average, would have made the team better. But a defense-only player that you're starting every single day out there, playing 160 games, is not going to be an impact guy for your franchise. So Evan White is not going to be an impact guy for the Seattle Mariners. I'm sorry. You could have a guy on your team that wins 10 Gold Gloves in a row, but if he barely hits above the Mendoza line over that decade, Is he helping you or is he hurting you? Preventing runs is essential to winning. We all learned that from the Moneyball concept. But you know what's even more essential to winning? You know what's the most essential? Scoring the fucking run, right? Oh. Just knocking a pen down. Sorry about that. So yeah, when you got a guy winning 10 gold gloves and not hitting over 200, is he helping you or hurting you? He is hurting you. So no, I don't see Evan White making a massive impact on the team. I don't see him coming up, doing more than making a couple good plays on the defensive end, getting one good hit, and then for the next 3-4 weeks, if he does come up and take care of like an injury replacement at some point middle of the season, he'll go right back down to AAA, making his $5 million a year. I don't get it. Why, as an organization, would you even waste time on somebody like that? And then why, as a sports writer, would you waste time just trying to fill the page with something like that? Why waste time writing an article about a guy who hasn't played in the big leagues in 2 years, has almost no chance of actually getting called up to his position since the Mariners have the incumbent in Ty France at first base? To waste 5 minutes of my life on that article, only to have it wrapped up with a quote, essentially from manager Scott Service, says, well, you never know what can happen up here. We could have an impact by Evan White at some point this season. Guys get injured all the time. Well, by that logic, you wouldn't have had to sign Cole Calhoun to help your outfield depth if you traded Kyle Lewis. You keep Kyle Lewis, and when Taylor Trammell goes down with his injury, oh, you don't have to worry about the outfield depth. Gotta love how you're a manager willing to give somebody who hasn't hit the broadside of a barn at bats on your team if your star goes down at that position, but you can't even think about that kind of possibility in other situations happening, such as maybe the outfield. Now Taylor Trammell, missing 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand, was expected to platoon with Jared Kelenic and left. Now they're shorthanded when they didn't have to be because they let Kyle Lewis go. But, Evan White, yeah, he's going to be the guy. Because they signed him to a contract before they played a big league game. I don't know if they're still actually high on him, or if they're acting like they're high on him, or if they're just not willing to admit their mistake yet on that contract. Man, that's ridiculous, though. It's just the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy when it comes from one player compared to another is ridiculous to me. So can't stand that one. That's what's going on in Schultzy's world with my favorite teams, Seattle Mariners and the Portland Trail Blazers. A little bit of Oregon Ducks news as well on the way out into talking about some LeBron James broken foot hot talk, and then talking about Sean Payton's new comments on Russell Wilson. We'll get into that in just a second. But Oregon Ducks actually making a pretty funny hire today, hiring Oregon State Defensive Quality Control Assistant Brian Michalowski to be their new inside linebackers coach. Pretty hilarious when you see rival coaches going to another program. You see Oregon State going to Oregon almost never. And I'm trying to think of the last time I saw a guy from Oregon to Oregon State. It does not happen very often. But Michalowski only spent one season in Corvallis, so I know he didn't really get into the whole rivalry thing between the Beavers and the Ducks, but it was one of the Beavers' best defensive seasons in years after he spent 3 years working for the Colorado Buffaloes. Also, the Ducks hiring another former Oregon State Beaver, offensive line coach Mike Cavanaugh. He actually served under Mike Riley for 10 seasons, 2005 to 2014. And, of course, the Beavers now looking for a new defensive quality control assistant. Pretty crazy, though, that the Ducks just ended up signing 2 former Beaver coaches to be on their staff. I find that kind of stuff hilarious, and I think that it's... you obviously remember it's like, well, the paycheck is the ultimate decider and all this, right? But I don't know, as a young sports fan growing into my adult years, I still want to hold that thought like, you know what? If somebody offered me $100,000 that I absolutely hated, I wouldn't take that. But that's just not the way the world works. Not the way the world works. All right, shifting gears. Let's get into some hot LeBron talk, baby. Hot LeBron James. Well, I don't know, hot or cold. I guess you could probably say cold. LeBron James breaking his foot. Going to have some more tests run on that, but big loss for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm kind of wondering how this is going to affect the Western Conference. The injury is a pretty rough time for the Lakers right now, timing-wise, because they were looking to rally from this low placement that they've had in the Western Conference. We can show y'all again exactly what we're looking at here in the Western Conference. Blazers and Lakers both sitting right behind the Pelicans. Lakers half a game behind those, and the Blazers just percentage points behind the Pelicans as well. But LeBron was really keying in on this last chunk of the season. At last week's All-Star game, he called the stretch run, quote, 23 of the most important games of my career for a regular season, end quote. And it looks like he's going to miss a significant amount of them or all of them at this point. Lakers, with LeBron James at the age that he is, 38 years old, he is running out of time in this league. How many more years can they push for a championship with the roster that they've got? They like the acquisitions of D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt, but without LeBron James, can they even do anything? Man, they were so close. They were so close right there, even behind the Dallas Mavericks, sitting just 2.5 games back. Looking at the 6th spot, a guaranteed spot in the playoffs. They are so close. But without LeBron James for that stretch run, what are they going to do? Can Anthony Davis and D'Angelo Russell lead them to that? I mean, they could slip into the playoffs. That's a possibility there. Of course, very crowded bottom of the Western Conference. It's going to see 13 teams going for 8 spots this year in the 2023 playoffs. So a lot to play for and a lot of opportunities for the Lakers in the Western Conference. But, oops, sorry guys, wasn't trying to click on that. But when you look at the Lakers and you look at their roster overall, are they deep enough without LeBron to even win 13 of those games? And if they win 13 of those games, is that enough? You've got to go on some significant kind of run. They got 21 games remaining at this point. If you're sitting a couple of spots below the 10th spot, which is the last playoff seed or play-in seed, for the playoffs, I don't know. You're probably just kind of guessing at this and kind of remembering what other years ended up shaking out to, and with 13 teams vying for 8 spots. You don't have to win as many games, but you've still got to win at least half, more likely 3/4 of your remaining games if you want to get to the playoffs, right? Can the Lakers do that without LeBron? Oh, that's funny. Scott says, how long till day-to-day Davis is on the bench also? They might be done this year. And that's a good point, Scott. That's something that I really haven't talked about yet. Anthony Davis's injury history. Has the dude played? I don't know how many games he's played in this season, but it's not enough. And LeBron has been playing without Anthony a lot this year. We haven't even really seen the Lakers at full strength. Can they be a full-strength team, with all the chemistry issues going on, too? I know Russell's gone now, so Westbrook being gone, that might alleviate some of the tension in the locker room. But I don't know, just because LeBron and Anthony are on the court, will they win a championship? No. Will they make the play-in? That seems a little bit more likely. Sean Sportscard says Lakers are going to make the play-in. Their roster's deep. Now, I think that if you look at the Western Conference, there are so many good teams that it could keep the Lakers out. But see, the Lakers, I don't believe the Pelicans, even with CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram balling out of their asses, are better than the LA Lakers. I just don't. The Utah Jazz, I don't think are better than the Lakers either. Golden State Warriors without Steph Curry, they might be at the same spot. So if you look at the Lakers overall in the West, even without LeBron, the play-in seems like a likely destination for them. But wouldn't that just be sad if they get into the play-in and then don't even make the playoffs? Because that's a legit possibility without LeBron, man. That is a legit possibility. And now with the play-in, I like the play-in and I don't. It gives a couple extra teams a chance at the playoffs, but I don't know. It's still technically not a playoff, but it is. We're just adding a chance for 2 other teams, and are those 2 other teams actually ever going to get to a Western Conference final? That'll be something to see. What's going on, Vanessa? Says, hey, Schultzy. Finally going to catch you live. How you doing? Appreciate you checking in. Fun to have every loyal listener and viewer here on Real Schultzy Sports and the Daily Sports Watch. Appreciate you. This, of course, is live streamed on YouTube every day from about noon to 1:30 Pacific time. And then you can catch it as a podcast as well on Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, Everywhere you get your podcast, you can find this as well. And it would help me. Yeah, give that 3-star or 3-star. Give it 3-star ratings. Give me the middle finger. No, give me a 5-star rating. Give me a nice comment. A like, would really appreciate that. Sean Sports Cards says that's true. They won't get past the plane without LeBron. Hopefully he comes back in 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, going to be a rough go for the LA Lakers, but they do have a lot of good pieces. Looks like the plan is a legitimate possibility for them. And as far as the rest of the Western Conference, I mean, it's pretty stacked there at the top. You got the Nuggets and the Grizzlies, who are both very deep teams. The Sacramento Kings essentially putting any rumors to bed about the Tyrese Halliburton trade being a bad one for them. Look at how well they're doing. Look at what Domantas Sabonis has turned into. I've wanted Sabonis to come to the Blazers for like the past 5 years, and look at what the Kings are getting out of prime peak Domantas Sabonis. But after the Kings, then you've of course got the Suns sitting there, and the Clippers and Mavericks. The Suns sitting there with Kevin Durant on their roster. The Mavericks acquiring Kyrie Irving at the deadline. Those are going to be hard teams to beat, y'all. And if the Lakers don't have LeBron, it's not going to mean diddly. They ain't getting anywhere past the Suns or the Mavericks. The Clippers without LeBron? That's a possibility. I could see that. But yeah, at this point, Lakers' chances to make the play-in, I think are okay. I'd say 60-40. But making the actual playoffs, pretty low. And what LeBron's injury means for the Western Conference is one less team full of star players chomping at their heels trying to win the championship this year. It opens up a chance for Phoenix to get back in there. It opens up a chance for the Denver Nuggets to be super dominant in the West. And maybe Nikola Jokic will win his first championship in Denver for the Golden Nuggets. All right, moving on really quickly before we get into our next segment, which is Would You Rather. We've got Would You Rather, and then we've got our daily DGen picks coming up. But I wanted to switch gears really quickly to new Broncos head coach Sean Payton sounding extremely wishy-washy. Coming out today making comments about the whole Russell Wilson drama. We talked about it yesterday. If you didn't catch the full segment or know what's going on, you can go and listen to the Daily Sports Watch from yesterday, and I'll lay it out for you. But essentially, when he was brought to Denver, Russell Wilson got an office up on the second floor with coaches away from players. A lot of coaches didn't like that. Some players thought it was okay, but there were many complaints made about that and kind of making it sound like Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson had more of a partnership as opposed to a player-coach relationship, which that's usually spells trouble for most organizations unless you're Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. That's the only exception to the rule ever. But Sean Payton coming out trying to defend Russell Wilson after a little bit of the backlash about him having that office in the Broncos facility. New Broncos head coach Sean Payton says no one would have made a big deal about the Russell Wilson office or other perks if the team had won in 2022. Really, Sean? Really? That's what you have to say to the criticism about Russ getting an office up on the coach's floor? Bro, I think Sean Payton is missing the bigger picture here. The whole point of the backlash to Russell Wilson getting an office is that the Broncos were not going to be successful with that type of partnership going on between Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. It's setting you up for failure. That is the point that Sean Payton refuses to address when he says, well, you know, if they would have won, nobody would have cared. It needed to be a player-coach relationship between Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. It's not like coaches were only complaining about the player-coach relationship that essentially turned into a partnership once they started losing and their season went down the drain. The report over the weekend made it sound like there were some voices speaking out against the Russell Wilson treatment from the start. I know Sean Payton's trying to act like a head coach and defend his star quarterback, but that is such a swift and quick turnaround from last week, y'all. It is hilarious to me how quick he almost pulled a 180 from his comments at his introductory press conference when he said, hey, there's not going to be any of this special treatment for Russell Wilson. Those coaches that he allowed in, the training staff that he allowed in 2022, that's not happening under my watch. That's what Sean Payton says. And then a week later, you go almost the other way. Why do you need to put a stop to that so quickly, saying, oh no, this isn't the way it's going to be here in Denver? But then a week later, you go and try and sit on the fence, essentially, and almost walk back those comments. Come on, Sean. A player in the league should not have an office away from his team, especially up with the coaches. A player in the league shouldn't have an office in the team facilities at all, unless he's a player coach, right? It's an obvious line that needs to be drawn in the sand. That just seems easy to me. That doesn't seem like a hard decision to make or even something you have to think about much. Sean Payton came in, though, at least last week it looked like he did, and drew that line in the sand, talking about, hey, we're not going to have this kind of relationship. We're player coach, and we're going to have our training staff in, not yours. But did he? Did he actually draw that line? Sounds very wishy-washy to me, and I really think it could be a sign of some drama to come in Denver. I really do, guys. It's small, but I think this little switch from Sean Payton trying to go out and say, oh, well, nobody would have cared if Russell Wilson had his own office if the team was winning. Bro, you literally just said that kind of special treatment wasn't okay. What are you doing? Pick one. Don't sit on the fence. And y'all remember, Sean Payton is not infallible as a coach either, right? Bountygate scandal? Anyone? Cost him a year away from the Saints? No one seems to mention that when they're talking about his relationship skills and what he did building up a relationship with Drew Brees, turning him into a star quarterback in the NFL. Nobody seems to talk about that when they talk about his relationship with Russell Wilson. And everybody's pointing to, oh, their dinner went great. Joe Montana, Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, they all had dinner together in Arizona, and it went awesome. Well, sure, but I have a feeling sooner rather than later there's going to be some drama coming our way out of Denver Broncos camp, and we might see some more tumultuous play. Because I'm telling you, Sean Payton seemed to come in, draw that line in the sand super strong, but then right away backed the hell off on those comments by, in my opinion, defending Russell Wilson, saying nobody would have cared if he had an office and the team was winning. No, that's not quite what the report laid out. The complaints were from anonymous coaches, but it sounded like, and it looked like in that report, that those complaints came almost from the start. It wasn't like once they started losing, those coaches started complaining. So that's just ridiculous. That's a cop-out. And I know Sean's trying to walk a fine line and defend his star quarterback, but what I think this does is spell trouble for the future in Denver and the future of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And my prediction, in 2 seasons, one of them is going to be gone. You heard it right here, Tuesday, February 28th, 2023, 2 seasons. It's either going to be Sean Payton or Russ Wilson sticking around without the other in Denver. It's going to be the way that it goes. I love it. Ryan Paulino says, Sean Payton, let's ride. Hey, Sean stepped up and defended me. Let's ride. Oh, my God. That's so funny to me. All right, so that's the extension on the Russell Wilson talk from yesterday. Kind of thought that was all wrapped up, but then Sean Payton coming out, making more comments, trying to defend his quarterback, but just sounding like an idiot, in my opinion. Trey Conrad says Russell Wilson is washed. That dude was out throwing lollipops last season. You know, I don't think he's completely washed yet, Trey. I do still think he has some physical ability to offer. He's not very old yet. He's taken very good care of himself, and obviously one of the top quarterbacks in the league at one point. Can he be that again? No, he's past that point. But I do think Russell Wilson can contribute with the healthy Jerry Jeudy and with an actual team and coaching staff that isn't going through a bunch of drama. However, it is still to be seen whether or not Russell Wilson and Sean Payton are actually going to get along, because this already, to me, says that Sean Payton is walking back comments in his mind that he made a week ago, or is already kind of starting to go back and forth in his head. That's not good. I know Russell Wilson wants to be treated a certain way, and I wonder how in week 9 or 10, he's going to be feeling when he doesn't have his coaches there every week, when he doesn't have his training staff there every week. He says it's okay with him now, but you just wonder how long-term those relationships are going to go and how that's going to work for Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. I don't know. What do you think? Like 8-9 this year? 10-7? Where do you think the Broncos are going to go, man, in Sean Payton's first season? It's a toss-up. It's a hard one. All right, let's get Russell Wilson off the schedule for a little bit, man. We've been carrying so much Russell Wilson talk the past day and a half. So let's talk about something else. Talk about other quarterbacks in the NFL. Let's talk about baseball and ask you some fun questions in a segment called Would You Rather.
Let's play Would You Rather, a sports edition.
Sometimes in life, the hardest decisions are the toughest.
All right, this is Would You Rather every Monday here on Real Schultzy Sports and the Daily Sports Watch. Ask you sports-themed questions in the form of the game that we all played in college together called Would You Rather. Got a gaggle of good ones today. So, if you're Aaron Rodgers, first up, would you rather remain with the Green Bay Packers or leave for greener pastures? If you're Aaron Rodgers, would you rather remain with the Green Bay Packers or leave for greener pastures? That is our first Would You Rather. Of course, we're waiting on a decision from A-Raj, deciding if he's going to retire, seek opportunity with another team, and leave Green Bay, or stay with the Packers. Looks like Vegas is going to be out for him, though. I saw that Josh McDaniels wanted to get a quarterback in that was going to be there, quote, for a long time. That's what McDaniels said. So I would say that kind of lessens Aaron Rodgers' chances at going to Vegas. I've thought for the entire offseason that that's where he's headed. Seems to be, though, that they're wanting a more long-term answer at that position as opposed to just a quick, come in and try to win a Super Bowl kind of answer, which if I'm Josh McDaniel, I think that's stupid. I think that's ridiculous. He already was such a terrible head coach in Denver, and the first 5-6 games of the year, people were calling for his head. If you have a chance to go get one of the best quarterbacks of all time and put him on your roster, try to go for a Super Bowl, and then have to rebuild a couple of years later, you do it. It's an easy decision to make. But Aaron Rodgers still has to make the call. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, would you rather remain with the Green Bay Packers or leave for greener pastures? No pun intended. Of course, the Packers banking on Rodgers making a decision on his future before free agency starts on March 15th. Sounds like that there's some people in the Packers organization that are already very high on Jordan Love and ready to hand him the reins to the starting quarterback position. And I do know that, we expect it soon. We're hoping that they get that announcement soon from Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron's probably taking his sweet time. I know the Packers really want him to make that decision, but he's probably sitting back. I know that he went away for his retreat here in Southern Oregon and Ashland. Dark room for 4 days and 4 nights to try and clear his head to make that decision. But he obviously still doesn't know what he's doing yet, because if he would have known, he would have came out right then. Told Green Bay, hey, I'm done. Or I want to stick around. Let's win another one. Let's ride, baby. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, would you rather remain with the Packers or leave for greener pastures? If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I don't necessarily know the situation with him daily in the locker room. If there's some drama, if there's a feeling, amongst some players and him or coaches, there's just not a great relationship there. I know that it's been a little up and down, but as far as I knew to end the season, it wasn't horrible there. But his best chance to win another Super Bowl, in my opinion, is staying in Green Bay. So if you have the option, if you're Aaron Rodgers, to leave Green Bay, maybe go to the New York Jets or stay there, I'd rather stay there every day of the week. So would you rather leave the Packers or remain with Green Bay? I would say remain with Green Bay if you're Aaron Rodgers. Next up on Would You Rather, as the GM of the Chicago Bears, trade the number 1 pick or keep it? Would you rather trade the number 1 pick or would you rather keep it? The Chicago Bears holding the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. They have the power to control the board, drop those dominoes. They can either take that top quarterback, Bryce Young most likely in the class, and apologies, by the way, I was saying Bryce Miller a bunch yesterday after talking about Brandon Miller, Alabama basketball player from last week. It's Bryce Young. Freudian slip. My apologies. I'm an idiot. Moving on, though, but they can take Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud essentially at the top of the quarterback list and at the top of the draft, or they can ride Justin Fields and turn that first round or that first overall pick into 4 or 5 first-round picks, or at least 3 first-round picks and a couple of seconds, maybe a third. At this point, They have the options to trade down to the Colts at number 4 in their spot. The Colts have a bunch of picks that they want to trade. They need a quarterback really bad. Seems like the fit is there. The Panthers could also make sense. That would yield them a bunch of draft picks as well, and they would still be in the top 10 if they decided to go off the number 1 overall pick, or if they just wanted to give it up completely. You know, another team like the Texans could kind of come in 11th hour and say, hey, we want a young quarterback on our roster. Essentially, the Bears have the option of drafting one player or getting a treasure trove of picks and prospects this year. And squeezing what they can get out of the Colts or the Texans or the Panthers, in my mind, is the best decision. But I want to know what y'all are thinking. Would you rather trade the number 1 pick or keep it? In this situation, I would rather trade it, since I already have a guy on my team that I don't think is going to be bad going forward at all. Is Bryce Young going to be better? Is CJ Stroud going to be better? I mean, there's the potential, but Justin Fields was a high draft pick as well. So would you rather trade the number 1 pick or keep it? I would rather trade it. Next up, would you rather watch your favorite team for a week straight at spring training, or would you rather watch the Pro Bowl in Hawaii back in its heyday? Would you rather stay in either Florida or Arizona for a week straight and watch your favorite team, or would you rather go and watch the Pro Bowl on Waikiki Beach in Hawaii back on its heyday? Well, okay, not the Pro Bowl itself wasn't on Waikiki Beach, but that's where all the parties were. I've stayed on Waikiki Beach. It's all beautiful people. It's all really nice shops and food, all fun and games there. I'll tell you what, Waikiki Beach is my happy place in life. We all have like this zen, that we go to in our minds, like the one place that we'd always want to be. I've got a favorite bar in Waikiki Beach that if you ask me, Jordan, where do you go to in your head? That's where I go every single time, looking out at that beautiful beach, looking out at all the beautiful people walking around, all the people enjoying their lives. And essentially, when the Pro Bowl was in its heyday, you had parties, celebrations, and all kinds of events on Waikiki Beach right there for everybody to enjoy. That was a blast when I was there, even without any events going on. So to imagine the kinds of parties and crazy situations that I could be getting into during the Pro Bowl parties and hanging out around those NFL players, that's pretty tempting to me. On the other side of the coin, I love spring training. And I love baseball. Spring training is such a loose time for those guys. They're so much more friendly. All the starters are just trying to get back into shape, so it's not really worrying about performance and stressing about, what their at-bats are every single game, but it's more just getting ready, showing yourself that you can do this again, and then interacting with the fans and kind of representing your organization as well. Ryan Paulino says, Dukes, exactly. I love Dukes, brother. That's not the place that I'm talking about, but Dukes on Waikiki Beach, Ryan Paulino. My wife and I had the best, oh my goodness, most delicious and fun dinner there. Oh, I'll tell you what, my favorite drink to have when I go to Hawaii, it's a, crap, I just forgot the name of it. It's a pina colada with the, crap. I literally drink this every time, and it's because I'm like talking a bunch and I forgot the name of it. It's the but it's a pina colada like with an added sweetness in it, and I love that every single time. It's got like a little bit of red or strawberry or something. That's the pina colada drink that I like to have when I'm down there. But essentially, my drink of choice, Lava Flow. That's what it's called, Lava Flow. My drink of choice at Duke's, a Lava Flow on Waikiki Beach, was just the top of the world, man. And it's hard to not want to be there all the time. Yeah, Lava Flows at Duke's on Waikiki Beach. That's the way to go. But it is super, super tough to say I wouldn't want to go to spring training either. Hey, Adam Bomb Breaks. What's going on? It's this all-day meeting. Finally able to relax with a Schultzy stream. What's up, brother? Appreciate you, Adam Bomb Breaks. Glad you're able to check in, man. Happy that you got your work done. So you're all done now, right? Now you can chill out for the day. Yes, grenadine's added to it. It is a lava flow Center Hill Cards. I just couldn't remember it, but that is by far and above my favorite drink whenever I go down to Hawaii. That's what I drink, a lava flow. Yeah, it's full of calories, but you gotta be on point as far as where you are, right? If I'm not gonna be drinking a lava flow like in Las Vegas, I'm gonna be drinking it in Hawaii. If I'm in Mexico, I'm probably gonna be drinking a margarita. I'm not gonna be drinking a lava flow down there. Oh, well, maybe if I'm at a resort, it depends. But yeah, comparing that to spring training, where you essentially have such a laid-back atmosphere, just like you do with the Pro Bowl, but you're there, you can get the autographs that you want, you can go party, go to golf resorts, hang out with some of the players if you want to. I mean, it is literally all access there in spring training, and one of the most leisurely times that you could imagine. So, would you rather go to the Pro Bowl or to spring training? You know, I kind of thought that I was leaning the other way. I thought when I started this, I was like going to answer that I'm leaning towards spring training because I've never been there. I've always wanted to do it, and I will at some point. But, gosh, that's a tough decision. I think I have to go with the Pro Bowl. Drink it a lava flow next to Rob Gronkowski at Duke's on Waikiki Beach sounds like a much better time to be. I don't know why. It just does. And Vanessa says, I would prefer to go to spring training, though. And see, exactly, this is a hard decision. This is why it is in Would You Rather today, because you really can't, without thinking really hard, make that decision. You got to think about the pros and cons of each place. So, would you rather go to spring training or the Pro Bowl? I would rather go to the Pro Bowl. All right, last Would You Rather of the day. This is a fun one, and has to do with the times of baseball games getting shorter because of the new pace of play rules. Would you rather watch a 30-run baseball game that lasts 3.5 hours or a no-hitter that lasts 2.5 hours? So essentially, you got a long game, which we're trying to get away from in baseball, and I was mentioning those long innings are really, really tough to watch and really, really hard for fans to sit down, and take time out of their lives and actually take part in for just an inning if it's an hour. So when you look at these two scenarios, would you rather be watching a 30-run baseball game that lasts 3.5 hours or a no-hitter that lasts 2.5 hours? I'd probably go with the higher scoring game if I had to pick. But I know, man, people out there, Center Hill's Cards just coming in with it as I was about to say it, saying no-hitter is the purest thing. I would rather see that. Absolutely. It's short. It's quick. But there's no offense. It's awesome and it's rare. But then on the other side of the coin, something a little bit rare as well, actually really rare, a longer game where a bleep ton of runs are scored. Yeah, Adam Baum breaks says if I'm at the game, 30-run game. And that is different, on TV or sitting and watching it at home. Yeah, if you're at that game, I think you want to be watching a 30-run contest as opposed to a no-hitter. But then being at a no-hitter is pretty special as well. I was at it was the Mariners. See, this sucks because it wasn't one pitcher, but it was a team no-hitter. Had like Kevin Millwood that started the game and then ended up getting finished by Tom Wilhelmsen for the Mariners. And it was a no-hitter for the team. Like 5 guys took part in the no-hitter. Pretty cool. Of course, walks and stuff happened, but he still had things happening during the game, but you had a no-hitter. I feel like a 30-run game would be much more exciting, and if it's 3.5 hours, that doesn't bug me too much. So that's probably the one I'd have to pick. Would you rather watch a 3.5-hour 30-run game, or would you rather watch a 2.5-hour no-hitter? I think the decision is pretty easy for me, and I agree with Adam Baum Breaks. If I'm at the game, the 30-run game, but even if I'm not at the game, I think I'm still picking that 30-run game. There's not enough to watch with a no-hitter. And yes, it's special. Yes, it's awesome. I want to be a part of that. But watching guys hit bombs, man, it's sexy. Chicks dig the long ball, right? And so does Schultzy. I did the long ball, too. Pretty good segment of Would You Rather today. A lot of good questions. All right. It's Tim San Francisco Giant Mem's favorite segment. It's time for the Daily D-Gen Picks.
He's a degenerate gambler. Cold hard cash.
All right. Daily D-Gen Picks here on the Daily Sports Watch for Tuesday, February 28th. Lean and a lock yesterday. Went 1 for 1 on those yesterday. I was on with one of my picks, and I was totally off with the other. We'll start with the lean of the day. Yesterday, I picked the Boston Celtics and New York Knicks to go over 223.5 points. Unfortunately, they did not get anywhere near that. And I think that is because of Jason Tatum's injury. I didn't expect him to go down with an injury during the game, but man, even if he scored 30, I don't think they would have hit the total of the over. It would have had to hit 224. So I am now 3-2 overall on leans of the day after the loss. Celtics v Knicks over 223.5 points. Celtics win 109-94, so the total not even freaking close. Today, going on to college basketball for my lean of the day. I think this is a pretty solid one. Arkansas +6 at Tennessee. They're in Knoxville after losing to Alabama last week. Tennessee, last game they won big against South Carolina, but they've struggled with injuries. They've struggled with losses lately. Nick Smith Jr. is back for Arkansas, so their offense is going to be playing a lot better, I think. Kind of back into their normal style that Arkansas plays. And Tennessee has struggled a bit on the offensive end. During those wins, I don't think they're going to cover a 6-point spread v. Arkansas. Yes, Arkansas is the underdog, but there's a lot of ways for Arkansas to get that 6-point spread. Even if Tennessee wins, man, something could happen at the end of the game. And I think that the potential for that to favor Arkansas on the +6 is much bigger than Tennessee covering -6. So lean of the day for me here on Schultzy's. I was also going to say Schultzy's card pulls. Slipping. Another Freudian slip today. Lean of the day today here on the Daily Sports Watch, Tuesday, February 28th. It's going to be Arkansas at Tennessee. Lock of the day. +6 to cover. +6. Lock of the day. These are going well for y'all so far. I hope you're playing these. 4-1 so far on locks of the day here on Real Schultzy Sports. 4-1. Yesterday, I picked the Detroit Pistons and Charlotte Hornets to go under 237.5 points. They did just that. Hornets won 117-106. That was a total of 223 points. So congratulations to y'all that took that. 4-1 now for my locks of the day here on the Daily Sports Watch. Keep following those, baby. Can make some cash. Lock of the day today, we're going to my Portland Trailblazers, taking on the Golden State Warriors tonight. I think this is a little chance for you to make some money on a lock that is in the plus. Matisse Thybulle over 1.5 steals tonight. The Portland Trailblazers' new acquisition at the deadline for defensive purposes. Matisse Thybulle on the defensive end is a man possessed. He's been playing very well during his career with Portland. It's only been 4 games, but he's recorded 9 steals, 4 blocks, 14 rebounds, getting more and more minutes pretty much each game. And at this point tonight, with the decimated Golden State Warriors team, I think that without Steph Curry, Klay Thompson leading the way, I think that the Blazers are going to be heavy on the defensive effort. And since Warriors don't have a true point guard, I think the turnover rate's going to be a little bit higher. Tybulle's gonna eat tonight. He's gonna have like 3 or 4 steals. It's not going to be just 2. I think he's going to have like at least 3 steals. So lock of the day, Matisse Thybulle for the Portland Trailblazers over 1.5 steals tonight when they play the Golden State Warriors. Tim San Francisco Giants Mem says, I bet that game under. Talking about the Celtics and Knicks, talking about my lean yesterday. Well, congratulations, man. Congratulations. You made some cash then. You made some cash against me, and I love it. And he also says he loves the Arkansas pick. I really do think Arkansas, the Razorbacks, with their point guard coming back, and as decent as their offense is, you know, Tennessee's a good team, but their offense just isn't as consistent. And I hate to use the word consistent because when we talk consistency in sports, that's what you're supposed to do, right? But when it comes to like college athletes, I'll use the word consistency because they haven't been, they're getting NIL money, but they haven't been signed to a contract to show up and, you know, produce 25 points a game. That's a little bit different in college, but so when I use the word consistency, I'm most likely going to try and keep it to like college teams, younger players, amateurs, or well, I guess they're not technically amateurs anymore, but you know what I mean. Guys not in the pros, because you're paid to be consistent at that point. And when you aren't, you just suck. If you're consistent, you're good. So I'm not going to sit there bitching and hoping for, my favorite team's fourth guy off the bench to be more consistent. He is what he is. Tim, San Francisco Giants mem says, just bet Arkansas, go Razorbacks. Yeah, I really think that's a good one today. I do think that's a nice one to catch some money on. Lean of the day. One more time for you. Arkansas +6 at Tennessee. Lock of the day. Portland Trailblazers forward Matisse Thybulle over 1.5 steals tonight versus the Golden State Warriors. Hope you can make some cash on those. Let me know if you win. Let me know if you lose. It sounds like Tim has been making some cash off these picks almost every single day. I love it. Oh, well, guys, it's been a good show today. We've talked a lot of LeBron, talked a lot of Sean Payton. That situation just annoys me. I can't stand when it sounds like somebody's going to put their foot down in a situation and then they end up just backing off. Like, well, Russell Wilson just makes so much money. He's got control of the situation. Well, the Broncos suck. It's not like they had a star quarterback under center last year. I mean, what kind of leverage does Russell Wilson really have? Just annoys the hell out of me. Just unbelievably annoys the hell out of me. But that's pretty much it for today, y'all. It's been a fun one. Hope you're all enjoying your week so far as we really get deep into it. Almost hump day now. We'll see exactly what the report on LeBron James is. Like I said, hopefully Gavin Lux can get back at some point in 2023 after basically ACL and LCL exploding in his right knee after running the bases Monday. And I need the Portland Trailblazers to make the playoffs. But so do they. They need themselves to make the playoffs to get themselves into a position to make a trade to get a star onto the roster with Damian Lillard before his prime expires. And if they don't, seriously, if they don't get somebody, I'm going to make this promise right now. If the Portland Trailblazers can't get anybody to pair up with Dame this summer, after Dame retires, I might retire as a Portland Trailblazers fan. Like, they're never going to get a transcendent generational talent like they have again, I think, with Damian Lillard. This is just lightning in a bottle. He made the all 75th anniversary NBA team, one of only, I think, 10 players currently in the league to make that team. Made a gaggle of all-star games. The only thing that he hasn't done, I guess two things, is win a championship and win an MVP. And I don't think he'll ever win an MVP unless the Blazers win a championship, because the MVP usually goes to one of the better teams in the league. He should be. He definitely is an MVP. I don't think that's debatable, but just the way that the award is given out, I don't think Damian Lillard's ever going to win it. But I am waiting. Blazers. Got to make a move. Got to make a move now. This summer is your chance. Stop acquiring assets and just do it. And more to talk about tomorrow. Had something about Matt Patricia kind of being on ice in New England that I wanted to get to. The word that they're using there is untethered. Matt Patricia, after losing out on the Denver Broncos defensive coordinator job, might still try to be coaching somewhere else in the NFL. We'll get to that. Talk about why he's untethered in New England, as well as the combine this week. Young not throwing, Stroud is. Who's going to go number 1 overall in the draft? We don't know. All right, everybody. Great show. Appreciate you hanging out. It's been fun. Let you get on about your day. I'll be back tomorrow at noon here on the Daily Sports Watch. Real Schultzy Sports out. Be good to yourselves and each other. Stay safe, y'all. See you tomorrow.